GM all. Today we're going to be creating oSnap proposals with custom transactions. And so first I'll explain the different ways to define oSnap transactions on the snapshot front end. And after that, I'll demonstrate an example using HATS protocol. And so for that example, we'll create transaction data on the HATS front end. We'll simulate that transaction and create a snapshot proposal with the generated transaction data. Now, I've already created a demo safe and snapshot space with oSnap, so I won't be covering that, but you will learn more about creating oSnap proposals and get an intro to HATS, which is an awesome new on-chain decentralized coordination tool. So flipping over to my demo snapshot space, I'm going to create a new proposal. Just leave the title as test, and I'll click on the oSnap box and continue. And so now we have see the different ways to create transactions. You can do transfer funds, which you just select an asset and then to address and the amount. You can also transfer NFTs in a similar way. There's contract interaction. And so here you can paste an address, and if it's verified on Etherscan, it'll bring in the ABI, and then you can select a function to call from that address and put in all the different arguments here. The next option in the dropdown is the raw transaction, and that's what we'll be doing with our HATS example today. So you just paste in a contract address if you want to send any ETH with it, and then a byte representation of the transaction data. And then the last option is to add a transaction batch in JSON. And so you can generate transactions in JSON and then upload the file here. And now I'll switch over to the HATS front end where I've already created a example DAO structure. And so HATS is an on-chain roles protocol where each role is represented by a different hat. Uh, the roles can be worn by one or more EOAs or smart contracts, and each role has defined responsibilities and can also have different privileges like a specific Discord role or can have access to like gated smart contract functions. And I've set up my DAO top hat to be worn by my safe that is connected to oSnap. So now basically the DAO has control to add or remove hats and revoke hats from certain addresses and add other addresses to that hat. So now to revise the hat tree, I'm going to create draft changes on the hat's front end, and that will create transaction data that I'll put into my oSnap proposal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, make this address the where of our smart contract lead hat. I'll switch over to our snapshot space where I'm going to create a new proposal. Make 0x64 smart contract lead. I'm going to select the box to make it a snapshot proposal. And I'll have this in 10 minutes just for test purposes. And now I will add the transaction information. So I'm going to go to raw transaction, and then I will copy the address in here and the transaction data into here. And we're going to be sending this transaction with no way. And so we're ready now to publish our proposal. But just before that, it's really best practice to simulate this transaction before, so we know ahead of time that it's not just going to revert or it's not going to have any unintended consequences. So to simulate it, I'll switch to our Safe app in our Safe account that controls the DAO, and I'm going to use the transaction builder, and I will paste in the address and the transaction data. I need to hit custom data here. I'll put in the transaction data and the value of 0, add the transaction, create a batch, and then simulate it. And so safe will tell us success, this batch was successfully simulated. That basically tells you that it didn't revert, but that doesn't necessarily tell you that it didn't drain your DAO of funds or anything like that. So if you click on the Tenderly link, it will show you the transaction information. And so for the simulated transaction, you can check the events that were emitted, so you can make sure that there weren't any unexpected token transfers, and you can also check the state that changed due to this transaction. So it takes some technical knowledge, but it's not too difficult to check that there weren't unintended consequences. And so now that I'm satisfied with that, I'll flip back and publish our proposal. So now I'm back on the hats front end and I've skipped past the liveness period and the execution, and you can now see that the 0x64 address is our smart contract lead. So that's the end of our video. Hope you enjoyed it, learning a bit about oSnap's flexible transactions and a little bit about HATS protocol and how it can help your DAO coordinate. I'll include links below for more information.